Yo, 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 what up? Welcome to the next lesson, you guys! Today we're going to be expanding on the characters. In this case, we're going to be talking about the tank again. But this case, we're going to be talking about a race that I wanted to include so it would fit within that medieval theme. They're dwarves. Yeah, that's right. So these are mythical creatures known for their weapons, tools, their fighting styles. I don't know. Maybe you're going to think of the Lord of the Rings when you think of this, for example. These are characters that are strong, proud, and above all, they have the characteristic that quality of the fact that they work both as defense, as a tank, in amazing ways. What I just did here is a structure that's a little bit basic of how we could compare the structure we've been working on so far, on that normal tank thing compared with that of a dwarf, okay? So yeah, the height that we're going to draw at now is going to be inferior to the one we've used for drawing before. But this way, we get that image variety that we can create on the same class of character. In this case, what we're going to do is shorten the extremities, okay? So, like the arms and the legs. And maybe we could add in maybe a little bit more curves in the case of the women. I put in these two examples. In this case, none of the drawings that are there are mine. I took them as reference so that you could get an idea of what we're doing here. Okay, so as you can see, we can find that the top part and the bottom parts are quite structured. So the area in the forearm and the arm in itself is much shorter. The femur and the tibia and stuff, they're also much shorter. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is a brief representation in 3/4 or 3/4, basing myself on all these images I have on the left so that I can get that figure in the way that I want to represent it. Remember, seeing as it's a woman, I love to give these girls as many curves as I can in my drawings, okay? I'm going to use that reference as much as I can so that I can get a complete summary of what I want to show you here. As you can see, I'm starting by shortening the extremities, like the legs. I'm just making them a little more, voluptuous and shortening them to give them that, low height appearance, okay? In this case, I'm using a reference, like a real photo, because that way I can work with more, just a bit more speed. But the trick is in exaggerating these features, so maybe taking an image and then globalizing it, so then apply on top of that. So maybe we have in our head that fairies are like delicate, small, and fragile. This is going to be really similar. It's mostly just a question of getting that character design we have in us out and getting that creativity up so that we can try and deduce how we're going to make that face, nose, eyes, her expression, if she maybe has some kind of more complex detail to her. It's all depending on how we want to do this. So, as you can see, in this case, I'm making this pose, I'm just making it up, basing myself on the photos I have on the left. And in this way, what I can see is a little bit of the rotation that this character might have. So short, simple shapes, and as I always say, it's just a case of practice, practice, practice. There isn't a formula or anything like that. There isn't something that just shows up. It's just practice. Like anybody who's good at a sport didn't just come out like drawing Mozart. It's just a question of looking at who can teach you, who can use your stuff to be constantly doing the best you can to work with this. Okay. Okay, so thanks to these reference images and the drawing I just did, I'm going to try and draw in the back of the character. I'm going to be using pretty, closed, flat shapes, and the curve is probably the most important part within these shapes. So I'm going to be supposing that the body has this shape, okay? But the ideal thing to do would be to look for some kind of example that could aid us more in the drawing, okay? However, we've gotten quite a natural result. I like it. And it seems pretty adjusted to the concept that we're looking for. You know? A dwarf character, feminine. Remember, I'm using a female character because we're looking to search for and create a project on a heroine, so a woman, within the world of RPGs in video games and stuff like this. So what I'm trying to do is exaggerate some of the features a little bit. As you can see, I'm rounding off a little bit the shapes, like the nose, the jaw. And yeah, well, this is kind of what it's going to be like. I like it as well that she still has that kind of feminine appearance. And well, maybe I could clear up a little more of the eyebrows or make that jaw a little more notable. Maybe give her some little ears. So this is basically the appearance I want to give to the dwarf figure that I want to represent. So moving on to the rest of the parts, I'm going to try and explain this a little bit better. This would be a leg, for example, a standard leg. It has a normal size. What we would have here is what a smaller leg would look like, so we could use it for our dwarf. As you can see, the muscles become a bit more exaggerated. The curves are very notable, okay? And we're going to make the foot smaller, okay? The top part is going to be smaller, and the bottom part too. And this is what we'd be left with as a result of what we could, what we could call legs. Now we're going to move on to the arms. These will be basically smaller proportions to what we have, and then round them off a little bit so that we could get that result that we really want to get in the end. As I was saying before, this would be a standard arm, and this would be a reduced arm. So we could use it for our dwarf character. We have to round off the curves and reduce the proportions, like I've been saying. This would be more or less the end result. Yeah, so maybe let's make that waist a little bit thinner. We're going to shrink the proportions in the torso, and we're going to reduce in a proportional way. Well, it would entirely be proportional. It wouldn't entirely be proportional. What would be reduced would be the arms and legs, but in this way, we would be able to get the figure we wanted to represent our dwarf character. So for example, I'm going to make this figure in a quick sketch again, so that you guys can see how it works. So you can see that the legs are a little rounder and wider. I decided to shorten the bust. We're going to make those arms as well, so that the hands have to end under the pelvic area. And this will be the result of a frontal view. So, yeah. So we're going to finish this lesson off here. If you have any questions, let me know. See you guys in the next lesson. Bye.